It is time now for Money Power Politics. And for the first time in weeks, investors are reining in their optimism over the war in Iran. The Dow plunged more than 550 points and oil prices climbed after Iran launched a new wave of attacks across the Gulf region. As we mentioned, according to the U.S. military, Iran fired on American ships in the Strait of Hormuz, but the missiles and drones were intercepted and no ships were hit. The UAE also said that an Iranian attack caused a fire in the largest oil storage area in the Emirates. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., the last California-bound oil tanker to pass through the Strait of Hormuz has arrived in Long Beach just in time for the average price for a gallon of gas to reach nearly $4.50. Back with us tonight, my dear friend and now colleague, Ron Insana, MS Now contributor and publisher of The Message of the Markets on Substack. And Clayton Siegel is back, senior fellow for energy security at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Okay, Ron, I'm just going to say this is probably the most normal reaction the stock market has shown in weeks, given the situation in Iran. What's your take?
Well, I think the reacceleration military action shocked Wall Street. Everybody thinks, as you said earlier in the program, that this is just going to be done sometime soon because they're getting hints from the White House that everything's under control, that gas prices are going to come down, that oil is going to start flowing through the strait again. And with this new military altercation between Iran and the UAE firing on U.S. ships, that calls that entire line of reasoning, if you will, into question. And so, as you also noted, with that last ship getting to port in Los Angeles, we now have months to wait for oil to make it around the world because it takes quite a long time for oil tankers to leave the strait and get to their ultimate destination. So, yeah, this is finally a recognition that we're approaching, pandemic level shortages of certain goods, energy goods, fertilizer, helium used to make computer chips. Market's kind of up to flat a little bit tonight. Oil's down a couple bucks. But I think the more we see these types of altercations, the more the stock market's going to have to deal with the fact that it's not over tomorrow.
Clayton, it might not feel like it, but this war has not hit the U.S. nearly as hard economically as places like Europe and Asia. Number one, could that change? Could we feel it as hard? Or could the problems they are facing start to spill over economically to us? This is a global economy.
Hey, good evening. Good to be with you. Well, I think that it's inevitable that if we continue to have a loss of about 13 million barrels per day from the closed Strait of Hormuz, that eventually, like a domino effect, we're going to start to feel more and more of the pain. And you mentioned the pump prices, which have increased to well more than $4 a gallon on a nationwide average basis. And I think that they're on their way to $5 in the current direction of travel, unfortunately. And so when people in Asia hear about this, the story that was in the news today about the last oil tanker reaching California before the Strait of Hormuz closed, their attitude is kind of like, hey, get in line, because they were facing that cutoff a few weeks ago. That's the region of the world that has the most acute shortage. The United States is exporting a lot of our crude oil, a lot of our refined products around the world to make up for shortfalls. But what do you think is going to happen to prices here if that direction of travel continues?
I want to stay on that because we actually have the numbers. The U.S. has shipped more than 250 million barrels of oil overseas over these last 9 weeks to fill the supply gaps. Can we keep that up, Ron?
Well, I doubt it. We're drawing down 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as it is already previously announced. Yes, we can export more crude oil and refined products, but, we've drawn down the SPR, as it's known, to somewhere to between 25 and 30% of its capacity. And the other problem for us is not just can we do it, but what happens if we do? It keeps domestic prices higher than they would otherwise be because demand for U.S. crude oil is going up, not down. So that means we pay more at the pump for gasoline. It means we pay more for anything that we export outside the United States. And so that adds more inflationary pressure to an economy that's already seeing inflation well above the Fed's desired target of 2%.
Clayton, OPEC Plus announced yesterday that it would increase output by 188,000 barrels per day. And I know we say these numbers and all of us, our eyes glaze over, but all we really want to know is, will that help or is it too little too late? Big number. Can it make a difference?
Now, first of all, it's not a big number in what was before the war a 102 million barrel per day market. It's a drop in the bucket. And most OPEC spare capacity is really not accessible. Most of it lies in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia has managed to redirect some of its flows to bypass Hormuz. But for the most part, that extra oil that's been pledged by OPEC and friends is not going to make any difference to the market. But I want everyone to focus on two things here. The first one, as Ron correctly points out, is we're drawing down our inventories. That's the first cushion that the oil market has against future supply disruptions. And that cushion's getting thinner and thinner every day that we run a 13 million barrel per day loss. And so we're moving to a cumulative loss of close to 1 billion barrels. And that's going to take a long time to dig out of. The other cushion that the oil market has in the event of supply disruptions is OPEC spare capacity. And it's upstream of Hormuz. And now the United Arab Emirates, as of a few days ago, is not probably going to be participating in the policy of holding spare capacity by policy, by design. So that means thinner cushions against future disruptions, both on the inventory front and the spare capacity front.
All right, but here's the thing. High gas prices are just one of the things adding to Americans' affordability concerns right now. But I want to share this because you would not know any of this if you listened to what the president's remarks were about the economy earlier today. Watch.
Thanks to these pro-growth policies, our economy is roaring and factory construction is way up. Consumer confidence is way up.
For fact's sake, the economy grew 2% in the last quarter. That is nice, but it is not roaring. Factory construction is not up, it is down. And April's consumer sentiment was the lowest on record. Ron, the president can say whatever he wants, but when it comes to the economy, I just don't think this is something you can spin to the American people. You cannot tell me my lived experience when I'm the one filling gas, going to the grocery store, just dealing with life.
Yeah, and we know this from the prior administration. I mean, you just can't. And listen, quite frankly, the Biden administration's economy was stronger than the economy we're dealing with right now. We have 2% growth. We've had zero job growth since April of 2025. We've lost 75,000 manufacturing jobs. Yes, the build out of AI infrastructure is propping up GDP by about 3/4 of the growth that we saw last quarter, the first quarter of this year. And that is going on. Consumer spending is reasonably healthy, but this is not a runaway economy. Consumer sentiment, as you said, is at the lowest level we've seen since 1957. I mean, I'm loath to quote Sherman Potter from MASH here, but there's a lot of horse hockey being thrown around. And, you know, it's just not true. When people are saying that the economy's on fire or it's a golden age, we have tariff rate-related inflation, energy-related inflation, grocery prices are up, insurance costs are up, housing prices are still up enough so that it is unaffordable for many first-time buyers. It's not quite the economy by any stretch of the imagination being described by the White House.